Well, good morning and welcome to Stories for the Cooped Up and Captive. Just a quick note to the parents out there, this story is rated PG-13. Later on, there is one subtle adult reference. So, I met my first wife at orientation before our first day of veterinary school at the University of Illinois. We both loved to water ski and listen to blues music. But among the differences, and eventually there would be several, were academic. You see, she could knit sweaters during lecture, take a quick glance at the notes, and ace every test. I, on the other hand, in order to stay awake, I chewed tobacco by the bushel, drank coffee by the gallon, sat in the first row, feverishly took notes, pulled all-nighters, and prayed for C's. Well, sadly, I let affairs of the heart supersede those of the head, and in doing so, at the end of my freshman year, I had achieved a grade point average that the administration was not exactly impressed by. Long story short, my girl graduated a year before I did from veterinary school and emigrated north across the Cheddar Curtain to become the next great dairy veterinarian. Well, I was left behind, but not alone. My good friend Arlen Rogers was looking for a roommate, so we rented an apartment in a graduate school commune called Winfield Village. We never had fewer than 3 dogs, 2 cats. I had a stereo that I used to play DJ jobs, 400 CDs. On any given night, weeknight, the dogs would be doing hot laps off the back of the couch, up the stairs, down the stairs, off the walls. We'd be blasting the stereo at volume 11, listening to Stevie Ray Vaughan, Couldn't Stand the Weather, eating enchiladas, or sitting on the front stoop singing the front porch song like Robert Earl Keen and Lyle Lovett. Our poor neighbors. On the other side of 2 sheets of drywall was a lovely family we affectionately referred to as the Baptists. So called because every Sunday morning and evening, and again on Wednesday evenings, properly dressed and in formation from Papa Bear down to the youngest kid, they would march off to worship, Bibles tucked under their arms. Well, long distance love is a challenge under the best of circumstances, and with 240 miles between us and we were both juggling on call and clinical duties, there were times we didn't get to see one another for a month at a time. On the heels of one such drought, she declared that she was going to come down and visit in spite of the fact that she had been on call on Friday night, which led into calvings and DA surgeries on Saturday mornings. She didn't get to town until 10 o'clock on Saturday night, exhausted. But still, we celebrated our reunion as young lovers will and fell into peaceful slumber wrapped in one another's arms. I woke the next morning well after dawn and artfully extracted myself from her embrace so that she could continue the restoration she so desperately needed. I dropped to my knees and swept to clean up the spoils from the previous night of passion. There was nothing. I dropped to my stomach and reached as far as my arm could go under the bed. I pulled back 3 dirty socks and the early onset of panic. I looked at my 9-month-old yellow lab named Cooter. He had his head pressed into the shag carpet, and his caramel-colored eyebrows were in a V for guilty as charged. You see, Cooter's power-eating resume had included a half a crate of oranges in one setting, in another setting, 6 pounds of kibble in one setting, and an entire Thanksgiving pumpkin pie. Now, fear not, animal lovers, Cooter was going to be just fine. If it came to that, an uncomplicated intestinal foreign body surgery was a pretty straightforward procedure. The source of my anxiety was that the student on call for surgery that weekend was me. You see, I would be assisted by 2 technicians, probably a couple of my classmates, and a clinician. One does not simply make an incision in his dog's duodenum and extract a used contraceptive and slip it in his pocket without breaking the surgical field. So I went for plan A. I called Cooter and we flew down the stairs 2 at a time. I parked him in the corner with his head up and reached for the brown bottle. He chugged like a frat boy, and somewhere around 50 cc's, his stomach started to churn, so we flew across the living room. I flung the front door open and introduced a reluctant little lad to the concrete slab in front of the apartment. Just as the Baptists emerged for church, glory bound, I had a split second to make a decision which would be less traumatic on these poor kids. The sight of a 6'4" Sasquatch in tidy whities attempting to shield them, or what my dog was about to vomit on the sidewalk. Being the coward that I am, I slammed the door and parted the blinds. Cooter ran 12 feet in front of the family, heaved twice, and probably proceeded to vomit 3 Kleenex and a Trojan receptacle tipped condom in the middle of the sidewalk. Papa Bear never lowered his head, never broke stride, planted his left foot, and artfully marched his family a perfect military square around the shrapnel that had been deposited on the parking lot. To this day, I wonder if it is the good graces of that lovely family that has largely kept me from harm. Well, if all else fails, keep something moving forward.